Welcome in everybody to our final unit on the Civil War, and we're talking today about the differences between the North and the South. So the first part, I want you to examine this photograph and notice in the background you see factories, you see houses, you see the steamboats on the river, and this photograph was taken in Cincinnati in 1848, and it's a very nice capsule for us of what things were like in a northern city. You have access to transportation, you have industry, and you have housing. You have a lot of people living in a condensed area, and they're all doing different things and putting out products and responsible for shipping goods and services and providing services to all the people that live in this city. Now compare that with an area in the American South, and you have plantation life in the American South. People are spread out, living over vast quantities of land. The plantation owners, of course, would have slaves, and you see slave houses here. And the idea for a plantation owner was, the more slaves you had, the more land you could be farming, and the more money you could be making off of that land. And of course, most of these plantations in the American South were growing cotton. Some of them were growing tobacco, and we'll get into that here in a little bit. Most of them are growing cotton, and that's the number one export out of the South. That's how these people are making their fortunes. So the North, you've got an urban society. People are living in cities and working in cities. In the South, you have an agricultural society. People living in villages and working on farms. Let's look at the economic situation. How are these areas making money? And if you notice down here where it says this red thing is textile, all right? Well, the textile industries, you can see them across the country, but for the most part, they're located in the Northeast. Other manufacturing, most manufacturing is being found in the Northeast. Where are they making stuff? It's up here. It's in the Northeast part of the country. Down in the South, you've got cotton being grown, right? In Virginia, you've got tobacco. Here in Kentucky and part of Tennessee, you've got tobacco. Most of the corn and wheat is being grown in the North. Most of the dairy cattle is in the North. Folks, the food is being grown for the most part in the northern part of the country. The South is banking on cotton. They're banking on the things that are going to get them the most money, and not necessarily, the best crops for them to be using to sustain themselves. And this is going to play a key role in the war. I mean, obviously you do have sugar down here in Louisiana, and you've got rice down here along the Atlantic in Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina. But for the most part, most of their land is being used for cotton. And in the North, you've got all kinds of industry, be it textiles or other manufacturing. As far as population is concerned, the North outnumbers the South by a large margin. The North has more money in the banks than the South. The North has way more factories than the South, which we just discussed. Cotton, most of the cotton is grown in the South, if not just about all. Food, the North has most of the food. The North has most of the horses. The South has more donkeys and mules. The North has more railroad tracks. Folks, the North has every advantage going into this war. The economic situation. So the North has manufacturing, and Northerners want taxes or tariffs placed on foreign goods so that Americans have to buy goods made here in America. Well, the Southerners don't want those taxes. They don't want taxes placed on goods coming in from other countries because it's going to hurt cotton sales. Cotton is the number one export, the number one good that is being sold by the South to other countries worldwide. The Southerners don't want tariffs because it hurts their ability to sell cotton and it raises prices on other items. So the Northerners want tariffs because they want Americans buying American-made products. They want American people living all over the country to buy American goods, and the best way to do that is to raise the price on goods coming in from everywhere else. The Southerners don't want tariffs. They don't want taxes being put on goods coming into the country from other countries. The slavery question. In the North, a little complicated because you have people like Harriet Tubman and Frederick Douglass who are very much anti-slavery. They're abolitionists. Abraham Lincoln, not so much an abolitionist. He was against the expansion of slavery. He was against the idea of slavery expanding and moving into new territories or new states. But he didn't run for president on the idea that he was going to get rid of all slavery. That was not what he ran for president to do. He wasn't planning on getting rid of all the slaves that were currently in the South. In the South, they were all about slavery. Slavery was their way of life. That's how they made all their money. They didn't have to pay their employees. They were able to grow cotton and grow tobacco and make all the money that the slave labor was providing for them for free. So the North opposed slavery and thought it should be ended. The South believed slavery was important and necessary. The final difference we're going to look at is the idea of the power of the government. And this image down here was created by Benjamin Franklin in the run-up to the French and Indian War. And Ben Franklin believed that the colonies all needed to join together with each other, join up or die. And the North believed that once the colonies and the states joined together, once they formed one country under the Constitution of the United States, that country had more power than the states. So once the country's created, all of the states' powers are given to the country, and the only powers that the state has are the ones not given to the country through the Constitution. So the country has more power than the state. That's what the North thought. The Southern states, however, believed that the state had more power than the country, which meant that if the country passed a law that any state didn't like, the state could just say, no, we disagree, we're not abiding or we're not listening to that law. We're going to say that law is illegal here. And the question becomes, is that allowed? Is that constitutional? Is it okay for a state to ignore a law that is passed by the United States? And so the North believes that the U.S. government should be very strong and is more powerful than the state governments. The South believes that they can declare U.S. laws, federal laws, illegal. And that sets the stage for the breakdown of the United States society heading into the 1860 election. And we will talk more about the split in the country over the next couple of episodes. Stay tuned.